Hello Reddit. I wanted to share my story and maybe get some advice or support. It's been a tumultuous few years, and I finally feel ready to open up about what happened. Here it goes. I-35M was the sole survivor of a horrible accident that occurred 5 years ago. It was a devastating event that claimed the lives of my wife, our 2 children, and several others. The accident made national headlines, and I found myself in the uncomfortable spotlight. And like many survivors, I didn't experience survivor's guilt. Instead, I was numb. This lack of visible grief and guilt caused a public backlash against me, leading to relentless scrutiny and judgment. In the aftermath, people began to shun me. Friends, neighbors, and even some family members distanced themselves. The media painted me as cold and unfeeling, and conspiracy theories about my involvement in the accident began to circulate. The harassment became unbearable. My house was vandalized, and I received threatening messages. My attempts to move on with my life were met with hostility and suspicion. Eventually, I realized that I couldn't continue living in the same town where everyone saw me as a pariah. I needed a fresh start. I decided to change my identity and move away, leaving behind everything I knew. It was a drastic step, but it felt like my only option. I meticulously planned my new life. I legally changed my name to Adam Gray and moved to a small town several states away. I cut all ties with my past, creating a new history for myself. It was a complex process, involving careful preparation and a lot of secrecy. After moving, I found work as a freelance writer, a job that allowed me to maintain a low profile. I rented a modest apartment and began to slowly rebuild my life. The initial months were difficult. I was constantly on edge, fearing someone would recognize me or uncover my past. But as time passed, I started to feel a sense of normalcy returning. In my new town, I kept to myself. I avoided forming close relationships, wary of letting anyone get too close. I frequented local cafes, worked from home, and spent my free time exploring the nearby countryside. It was a lonely existence, but it was peaceful. For the first time in years, I felt a semblance of safety. One day, I met a woman named Emily 32F at a local bookstore. She was friendly and warm, and we struck up a conversation about a book we both enjoyed. Despite my initial reservations, we began to see each other more often. Emily was kind and patient, and she slowly started to break through the walls I had built around myself. As our relationship grew, I knew I had to tell her the truth about my past. It was a terrifying prospect, but I couldn't keep such a significant part of my life hidden from her. One evening, I invited Emily over for dinner. After we ate, I sat her down and told her everything. I explained the accident, the media frenzy, the public shunning, and my decision to start a new life as Adam Gray. Emily listened quietly, her expression a mix of shock and compassion. When I finished, she took my hand and said, "Adam, I can't imagine what you've been through. Thank you for trusting me with this. I'm here for you, no matter what." Her support was a huge relief, and it marked a turning point for me. With Emily by my side, I began to open up more about my past. We talked about my wife and children, and I shared memories that I had kept locked away. It was painful, but also healing. As time went on, Emily and I grew even closer. She helped me confront my past and begin to heal from the trauma. We attended therapy sessions together, where I learned to cope with my emotions and the lingering pain. I realized that my lack of visible grief was a defense mechanism, a way to protect myself from the overwhelming sorrow. Emily and I eventually got married. She became my anchor, providing love and stability as I navigated the complexities of my new life. We decided to move to a different town, where we could truly start fresh together. It was a chance to build a future free from the shadows of the past. In our new home, I found peace. I continued my work as a writer and even published a book about my experiences. It was a deeply personal project, and I was nervous about how it would be received. To my surprise, it was met with empathy and understanding. People reached out to share their own stories of loss and survival, and I felt a sense of connection that had been missing for so long. Now, 5 years after the accident, I finally found a measure of happiness and stability. The journey was long and painful, but it led me to a place where I can honor my past while embracing my future. Emily and I are expecting our first child, and I'm filled with hope for the life we're building together. Thank you, Reddit, for listening to my story. Opening up about my experiences has been incredibly therapeutic, and I appreciate the support and understanding from this community. If anyone is struggling with their own trauma or isolation, please know that there is hope. Healing is possible, and you don't have to go through it alone. Update. Hi, Reddit. I wish I were coming back with a happier update, but things have taken a turn for the worse because of you. I want to share what happened to caution others who might find themselves in a similar situation. After my last post, I felt a sense of relief. Opening up about my past and the journey I had been on seemed like the right thing to do. The support from the Reddit community was overwhelming, and I was grateful for the kind words and encouragement. I thought I was finally turning a corner, but I was wrong. It started with a few strange messages in my inbox. At first, they were harmless enough, people asking for more details or offering their support. But then, the tone shifted. I received a message from someone claiming to know who I really was. They referenced details that I hadn't shared publicly, and it was clear they had done some digging. Panic set in. I deleted the messages and tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence, that someone was trying to scare me. But it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, more messages came in, some more threatening than others. People were piecing together my story, and the anonymity I had worked so hard to maintain was slipping away. Then, one morning, Emily came to me with a worried expression. She showed me an article on a gossip website. Someone had written a post speculating about my true identity. The article laid out the details of my story, matching it with the accident that had occurred 5 years ago. It didn't take long for people to connect the dots. The backlash was swift and brutal. My inbox was flooded with hate mail and threats. People accused me of faking my story for attention, of being heartless for not showing grief in the way they expected. Old conspiracy theories about my involvement in the accident resurfaced, now fueled by the new attention. Emily and I were terrified. We contacted the authorities, but there was little they could do beyond advising us to stay safe and report any direct threats. The harassment spread beyond the internet. Our address was leaked, and people started showing up at our home. We had to install security cameras and hire a private security firm to ensure our safety. Work became impossible. As a freelance writer, my livelihood depended on my reputation, and that was now in tatters. Clients dropped me, not wanting to be associated with the controversy. My book, which had been a source of pride and healing, became a lightning rod for criticism. Sales plummeted, and the publisher distanced themselves from me. Emily was my rock through all of this, but even she was affected. She received hateful messages, accusing her of being complicit in my supposed deceit. Her workplace became a hostile environment, and she eventually decided to take a leave of absence. We were forced to move again, this time under even more secrecy. We sold our home at a loss and relocated to a different state, hoping to escape the relentless scrutiny, but the damage was done. The stress took a toll on our relationship, and we found ourselves arguing more often, struggling to maintain the connection that had once been our strength. In the midst of all this, Emily and I welcomed our baby. The joy of becoming a father was overshadowed by the fear and stress that had become a constant presence in our lives. We did our best to focus on our child and find moments of happiness, but it was difficult. Therapy helped, but it couldn't erase the damage done. Emily and I continued to work on our relationship, but the strain was evident. Trusting people became nearly impossible for me, and I withdrew from social interactions, afraid that anyone could turn against us. One day, out of sheer desperation, I decided to reach out to the Reddit community once more. I posted an update, explaining what had happened since my last post and pleading for understanding. The response was mixed. While some people offered support and empathy, others accused me of seeking attention and faking my struggles. Looking back, I realized that sharing my story online was a mistake. It exposed us to dangers I hadn't anticipated and shattered the fragile stability we had worked so hard to build. I wanted to believe in the goodness of people, but the reality was much harsher. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's the importance of protecting one's privacy. The internet can be a powerful tool for connection and support, but it can also be a breeding ground for cruelty and judgment. In our case, the exposure brought more harm than healing. Now, we're focusing on moving forward. Emily and I are working hard to rebuild our lives and provide a safe, loving environment for our child. It's a long road ahead, but we're determined to find peace and happiness again. I hope that sharing this will help others think twice before exposing their vulnerabilities online. Sometimes, the best way to heal is to keep your struggles private and seek support from those you trust implicitly. Stay safe, everyone.